Hi. Hi. Thanks for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here once more. I was here some years ago when I was more in the world of activism. In the past 10 years, a bit more than that, I've been working on the concept of how work is changing, especially in the so-called creative industries, and in which way is it possible to work in this field without exploitation, without self-exploitation, and how we can change the way we inhabit our cities, and in which way self-production and autonomous practices can help us live better. In the first part of the 00 years, I've been working on precarity, the concept of precarity and work. I was in the team with who created San Precario, the saint of protector of precarious workers, and after that on Serpi Canaro, that was a fake designer who participated officially to the Fashion Week in Milan in 2005. Since then, I went into, I discovered the world of makers and technology that was able to produce object, open object. I discovered that from the idea of open source that was developed in software and that I knew participating to hackerspace at the end of the century, I was happy that this was moving into a new realm. So I opened up a makerspace 1.5 years ago. We are working a lot with new technologies, open source hardware, new practices, and of course trying to also create more inclusion in this world, because usually, especially in Italy, technology is something that is more dedicated to men. Now I'm trying to create more practices that are bringing technology, for example, into the world of fashion. So women come to my makerspace also because next to 3D printers, we have knitting machines, we have sewing machines, and the laser cutting used a lot with textiles. We built one open knit, but we built it because we invited also the open knit guy, Gerard, to spend with us 1 month. He spent with us 1 month. I printed all the pieces. While I was working, I was staying with my 3D printer next to it and printing all the 200 pieces. But we created a program of maker in residence because we believe a lot in the tacit exchange of knowledge. You can have all the information and all documentation that you have online, but when you have really complex projects like building a machine, it's really important that you have somehow also a relation with the person or the people that did it once in practice. The talk of today tries to think about how open source projects are not only focused on sharing documentation online, but it's really important that we involve a community of users and we engage them in different ways. A part of having a makerspace, I work for Arduino project. I take care of the social communication, social media, and launch of new products and digital communication. I'm really happy to work for them because it's actually the first Italian open source project that became a company. It's not a foundation, but a company. And we're trying to be sustainable, paying people working for it, and delivering products that are made in a certain way to a big number of people. So, as I will show you during this talk, sharing is not only a matter of uploading a file or some code. The process of sharing is really a complex effort of internal and external communication. Internal in the meaning around the people collaborating to the project, and external in the sense of showing to people how they can collaborate, how can they use the project, how they can take part of the project. It's about understanding the material value that can be exchanged. Usually open source projects are not, people don't collaborate because they get money, but because they get another type of value. And it's really like bigger and different, people that collaborate, and you cannot exchange that with money. You would need a lot of money, but there is another type of value that can be exchanged, and goes deeper in our identity. I think that in understanding this value, we can also understand in which way we can grow with our project and what are the limits and the obstacles we are going to encounter in our path to growth. Growth meaning having more people to participate to our project. I want to start with this slide, because in the last 10 years, I mean, the debate around open source has been growing in unexpected areas of the so-called creative industries, from software, code, and computers operating system like Linux that we've been hearing about and using. Open source moved to content creation, knowledge, art, journalism, photography, music, and thanks to the power of the web and the accessibility of personal computers and mobile phones, it became easier to share and redistribute immaterial culture at zero cost. So it's really easy to exchange immaterial culture like code. You can now publish a music track, and in a matter of seconds, someone else is able to listen to it, comment it, download it, edit it on the other side of the world. But later on, and that is the interesting part, and in which I'm very passionate about, these practices related to open source moved from software, from material to hardware, to machines, to objects. Open design and digital fabrication are showing us new ways for designing and producing things, objects, but especially also machines. Machines that produce different kind of objects. But I believe that it's not only a matter of searching for something new. I'm passionate about it not because it's something that is new and is different from the old one, but because we now have a different problem. Traditional ways of producing objects and devices is often limiting innovation. Old monopolies are creating systems and barriers for real innovation to happen. For example, the same word, innovation, is not a straightforward word. It has a different meaning depending on who is saying it. Innovation for the big and powerful companies often means doing a little better of the competitors or creating a product that is a little better than last year's product. But often, for me, from people in this room and many others around the world, innovation could be a product or a service that is disrupting the way a specific service or object has been traditionally conceived. And this is something that it's not a matter of sharing, but it's a matter of power and relations that go beyond the concept of open source and the concept of sharing knowledge. For example, millions of tons of e-waste are generated by our devices, which are generally difficult to upgrade, fix, or repurpose. I mean, why there is no a phone that you can replace the battery, but even we move forward and the battery, you cannot replace it because they are closer and closed, even closed than a few years ago. So the illustration you see in this slide, it's contained in a book called Open Design Now. It's a book that came out and released in open source in 2011. It's made of chapters that were written by the protagonists of the open source scene. I chose it because it shows the composition of sale price of a centralized way of producing things. The designer is the one, the creator of the idea or the project is the one that takes the royalty that is very little, is only 3%. And other subjects involved in this supply chain, they are just taking much more. For example, retailers are becoming very powerful. And when you, for example, it happens also when we have small producers in our makerspace making things, they don't sell in stores, because usually if they produce something and they would sell it for 50 euros to people, on the shop, they will triplicate the price and would sell it for 200 euros just because the cost that a retail and a shop has. So the idea is that we need to change the way we produce things and make things, and doing this, especially if we release things in open design, what is changed is not only the object, but it changes also the way we work and the way companies are made and the way sustainability is achieved and reached. In the fact that, we are changing the way we do things, it changes also our practices. One day I was interviewed and they asked me what it would be to be a designer in 2025. And I was like, I usually try to see the two opposite positions. So the two, on one side we see the artist designer that usually is really cool and able to create a good work in packaging, communication, and distribution, and a good work with storytelling. These type of artist designers are, they understand that usually objects need to have a lot of immaterial value in it, and are able to create stories and create immaterial communication that is next to the connected with the object. It makes them more valuable for people. Usually, it makes money and it becomes sustainable selling physical projects and physical objects that are usually passive. So, or you buy it or not. On the other side of this scheme, we have the designer enabler. And I believe this type of designer sometimes is more hidden and less visible in our let's say online, but it goes more and is more interested in social impact and processes. So the output are not usually physical objects that you can take nice picture of, but is a new generation of creative that create mechanisms, interfaces, platforms, create collaboration with other people, so they are not focused on the persona, but they are focused more on the collaboration and on the process, and they are focused on making things accessible to more people, and they are able to listen to local needs and specific needs, and usually the output, and they become sustainable in showing and creating experiences and services. Of course, both of these, in the middle there is everything, a mixture of this type of people. And I talk in singular, so talking about the designer, but as a figure, but I believe that all of these people collaborate also with others. And both of them, what they share is reputation. Reputation grows with new type of mediators that are not maybe the place where you work or your family or your friends, but it's more about online and offline communities. It's about when you participate to an environment where knowledge is shared. For example, online community sharing project on Instructable or sharing project in different platform where people exchange and understand each other practices. Offline spaces like Makerspace, Fab Labs, or social centers that are physically gathering people. And I mean, in this domain of open source technology, physical spaces are becoming very important. As Wendy was saying, it's the way in makerspaces and Fab Lab knowledge is shared is really important. They are becoming a physical connection of the multiplicity of online communities that are more vertical. So these novel paradigms emerge, and in this new paradigm, customization is combined with personal fabrication, of course. Product development is expanded by co-users, co-designers, and usually open licenses replace the traditional patent systems. So I think that many creators and innovators are assuming that the impact of these paradigms activate opportunities to developing new design approaches and consider products not as passive, but they consider them more as platform in which people can be activated and people can participate. Just to give an example in which way this participation can happen, usually when we think of physical products that are made by hand or using basic tools, then we have the basic think of digital fabrication. That means, okay, you have a computer, you create a file, you put it on a server, someone else is downloading it and creating the object with local technologies. I'm interested in interactive fabrication, and because it creates experiences and it allows to involve more people in practices that are more technical and more like difficult and more, let's say, these practices need more specific knowledge. And designers and makers and creators are those that can create these interfaces and these interactions that allow people to step in an easier way. I wanted to go on with the idea and understanding this concept of open source artifacts. So these are objects and projects that a user can modify or build upon thanks to an ecosystem of shared documentation, services, and license. So it's not only a matter of sharing a code, but it's really like an ecosystem of this type of, I mean, it's not only documentation, it's really like a live organism that keeps growing. And I want to start and give some examples. In 2008, Ron and Kadushin published with an open design license. It was one of the first, this italic shelf. So he's a designer, and he published these files to be made and by people who could access to CNC machines, CNC router. And in the years, it was very simple sharing. I mean, he actually shared the code and asked to people to what he did, he created an open design license saying, okay, you can use this file to create your own shelf, and you can modify it. The only thing I ask that you send me an email if you do it with a picture of what you created. And he did it not because he was really generous, but he, I mean, he can, he thought of a new type of business model that he could live upon, in the sense that he liked this idea of allowing people to do their DIY version, and then he was creating experiences in galleries. So he was creating a performance in which he was making an official, for example, this one was a chair, a hack chair, laser cut metal, and he was making it in the gallery as a performance, and then was selling it for, I think, big money, but in a way, so he had the open source version that people could use, and then he created the one, I mean, I would call it the collector edition version of the chair. So with people that were really into this concept of aura of the designer could buy it. So now we are in a world where there is many business models that we can follow. On one side, the first level is about, let's say that Ronen Kadushin used the first sharing the code and then make the collector edition version of the chair. In the middle, you can also, I know many people that share the code and then sell the kit to make it easier for people to create objects. And then the second phase could be create a crowdfunding campaign and finance the production of a physical object, or other people that use distributed manufacturing platform to locally manufacture the objects. For example, this is the case of AdFab. They spent at We Make, the makerspace I have in Milan, for a maker in residency last year. They are a duo of architects. They are actually professor of architecture in Kentucky, and but they also inhabit the world of makers. They are usually, I met them in many events around the world, and then they spent with us 2 weeks in which we created a specific experiment of one of their furniture from their open source collection. They created an open source collection of furniture. Actually, what they do is share the file. Here they are at work at a makerspace with the CNC machines. What they do, they allow digital fabrication of their project. They put the file on OpenDesk. It's a platform for local manufacturing. So OpenDesk allows the designers to upload their design, and then makerspaces can subscribe and produce locally the furniture of designer that upload the code. The nice thing is that you can download the file for free, but not use it for commercial work. What they do, they different type of business model, in the sense that if you are a maker, if you have a makerspace, you can produce the furniture of the designer if a consumer wants to buy directly without doing any work. For example, a person from Milan could download the file, come to the makerspace, and make it by themselves if they can use the CNC router, or they can contact me, and I can tell them the price from which I make the furniture for them. And then the platform asks me to pay a fee to the designer and pay a fee to the platform to keep growing. So, but it's asked. I mean, it's not. I could do it hiding myself and doing it. But if I want to participate to this ecosystem, I'm happy to give this fee to these subjects that are making it easier to produce furniture locally. What they did is, as the furniture, so at FAB, the other thing, they not only shared the files, but as is, of the furniture as is, but they created also an application to allow people to customize the furniture. So it's a parametric app, and you can choose to resize, for example, the table to make it fit for your needs, and it's parametric, so it changes. If you change the length, it's gonna change also the height, and so you don't need to be an architect or a designer to use it. You can just play with the app and then download the file when it's done. So when I say lowering they are trying to create, as I say, an ecosystem of sustainability in which they connected with OpenDesk. They're trying to involve people in customization. It's not easy to customize a furniture using a CAD. It's not easy. So they are trying to do this, and I think they're being successful. It's not fast, and they've been working on this for some years now. They do it in their free time, but hopefully in the future they're gonna spend more time on it. Another example I wanted to give you is this of Sofia Guggenberg and Eugenia Morpurgo. They're gonna spend a residency with us in the next design week. I invited them because they are doing a great work on creating a pair of shoes totally, let's say, you can manufacture it in a makerspace. They started with this shoe. The first, this one actually was the second iteration of the shoe. She created it was like an installation, a shop that she spent I think 1 or 2 months in this shop, in which people could choose the leather, choose the sole color, choose the string, and then she was manufacturing in just a little space all the pieces. And but now she decided, and I mean it works. And when I met her and I really liked the project, she told me, yes, I'm not interested in manufacturing the shoe. I'm interested in creating a process in which this process can be used by local manufacturing, local fab lab, local makers, and they can make it their own. So she was a real designer focused on the process, not on the shoe. I mean, of course, she wanted to create a specific nice shoe, but the months of work she's been spending at the Time Lab in Ghent was to design a process to involve people in it. So this is the third iteration, and we are going to do this iteration, do this show in Milan in April next year. We're going to do a workshop on it. She changed it from the previous version because in this version, in this first shoe, she used also a 3D printer, but she said that it was too complicated. So she remade the shoe, and she decided to take away the 3D printer and only use the laser cut, because she says it's an easier machine, and you can do only you do it only using one machine. And she found out the right materials to be cut, so you can use the external insole and the external insole with one material. And she's actually preparing all the materials and the videos to assemble the shoe, because it's not only a matter to sharing the file. When we did we did an internal workshop 1 month ago, and one difficult one of the difficulties was to understand the sense of the shoe. When you have to assemble a 3D piece, it's really difficult to understand which is the right side. And so it was very important that she was next to me to show me which piece to add to another. And so she's preparing the videos also for this illustration. So the fact that she's taking like months to come out with documentation, it's because shoemaking is a complex task. It's very hard. They need to be comfortable. They need to be resist to use, and also to assemble them. I mean, there are artisans that took years of knowledge to make a good shoe. How to make it, how to involve people that are not technicians, that are not specific, they don't have specific knowledge. Creating and simplifying and creating the documentation and the tutorial that allow you to do that. And I think that I wanted to end with this. So the idea is that the main focus is about making it easier to step in, but also to get involved and contribute. Some people talk about the phase of stepping in and the phase of stepping up. So stepping in is, oh, wow, that's nice, I wanted to participate. And stepping up means, okay, I want to contribute on this, this, and that. These two phases are very different. Sometimes a lot of people step in, but very little step up. And because there is not enough knowledge or enough shared documentation. Arduino is, I work for them, and I'm in the last 2 years, I learned a lot about this platform. What I like is that they try to, and with success, to make electronic available to many people that are not white male engineers. So women artists, designers that don't want, that are not used to deal with data sheets. Data sheets are something that I mean, for me, it's like, I go crazy with data sheets. So Arduino is not about the board, it's about the documentation, the software, the people, and the fact that they share projects. So what does it mean? It means hardware. Arduino has been taught in a very different way. I mean, LEDs were really, really nice and cute illustrations. Every piece that you use with the electronics has been made understandable using very easy language. Also, if you see the documentation part, you have, when a product is released and sold in the store, there has to be a getting started guide, a tutorial, video tutorials, and examples, because people take example, cut and paste, and use it straight. And another thing is that they did guidelines for documentation. I don't know if is going the link. What? I wanted to go to the link.
I think you can.
Okay, but I mean, we have little time, so I just want to show you, if you go to the link, maybe with another, when I share this documentation, you can see that showing to people what does it mean to write a getting started guide, what does it mean to write tutorials, not use acronyms, use simple words. So there is a complete guideline on how to talk about electronics without being an engineer. And the software, for example, also to write the software, there is a style guide, how to comment it, how to make it easier to people that don't understand about code but want to enter and step in and step up, understand about code. People then share projects. I mean, The forum of Arduino is made of 120,000 people that participate and share knowledge and code and collaborate to the use of libraries. Libraries are really an important piece of software that is used to use different components with Arduino. So this is like some sentences that I wrote down after finishing the presentation, in the sense that openness for me is about sharing. Sharing is about communication and talking with people that come from different backgrounds. Communication is about care, caring about new targets, new people, new backgrounds, new experiences. So you want to be understood, and that's the focal point. Care is about allowing people to step in easily and step up properly, understanding and have orientating themselves in the projects, especially complex projects, without the need of becoming specialists. That's the main point. And we do this in Makerspace. Makerspace and Fab Lab are places where this happens every day, and in this year and a half, I've been knowing a lot and understanding a lot how this can be done, and we learn every day how to do this, and we have a lot more to learn. So come and visit us if you want. Thanks a lot.